Gavin here, welcome back to the channel. Today we're looking at something a little bit different. We're going to look at the soundtrack I just did for The Inner Loop. So recently I was asked by Martin over at The Inner Loop if I wanted to collaborate on a project with him. This was going to be an audio-visual project based off of the algorithms and code projects he does over on his channel. And if you're not sure of what Martin does, please go and check out his channel. I will have his channel linked in the description below. But it's really cool projects, both audio and visual stuff, but really it's all done using a computer and writing code to create these projects. So it's really cool stuff, so please go and check that out. But he recently started a project called the Mandel Bass. And this is a series of videos that are 2 minutes long, generated by an algorithm that he's written, and I was approached to see if I would write a piece of music as the soundtrack to one of these videos. And of course I said yes to this. I thought it was going to be a great project to work on. But for this video we're going to look at how I wrote this piece of music. Off of the sort of music I write, the way I work on this channel, I would do it all using bass guitars and of course drums from the TR-8, but it was all going to be built up of layers of bass guitar to create the track. And the cool thing with that was that it really meant I had to get creative with pedals, bass choices, techniques, all these sorts of things. So I thought I would talk through the process of writing and recording this track today. So initially when I got sent the video clip that I was going to be composing for, I spent probably about 3 or 4 days just watching the video, timelining it, figuring out where the different key changes in the visuals were. And that was going to be the points I used for the major changes in the piece I was writing. Something else I really wanted to take into account was that I knew he was going to be working with this afterwards, so I didn't want to put any drastic changes. There's of course changes in dynamics and it all gets a bit different as the track progresses, but really it's based around a 4-chord loop. And the plan was to use a 4-chord loop that would be the structure of everything, and the track would change with the layers and the dynamics around those 4 chords. So I spent a bit of time in GarageBand on my phone actually, just putting a rough track together, figuring out what I thought would work, and decided on writing it in the key of G major. And in fact it's a very simple chord progression. It's just a 1-4-1-5 chord progression. So if you don't know, that means it's G major, C major, back to G major, and then to D major. And in fact the track doesn't use any full chords, it's all root 5 chords for the chords in the track. All of the melodic elements and the feel comes from what the melodies are doing. So I spent some time in GarageBand putting some ideas together, like a rough guide track that would be time aligned with the video. And actually I did this with the MIDI synth sounds in GarageBand because I didn't want to be dictated by what a bass can do. I wanted to work with the sounds I wanted to use and then figure out how to create those on the bass guitar. And then of course I went into Ableton and created a guide track in Ableton using a bass guitar, and that gave me the fundamental of everything that was going to be in the track. And then from then I could layer the proper tracks once I'd figured out the sounds and create it all around that guide. The really cool thing was once I had that guide there, I could objectively look at the whole track and, for example, remap all the drums, because I had a very simple drum beat that carried on for most of the song to get the guide down. And then I found that the drums I really wanted were completely different to that. So I ended up remapping all the drums, playing some stuff in, and getting this building drum sequence that creates the dynamic changes in the track. But the next stage after creating the guide track was to put together all the proper sounds. So let's have a little look at what I used to do that now. First up, I created all the synth pad and melody sounds. So this is what you'll hear at the start of the track, and as you'll have heard on the intro clip, that's actually the guide track that was played when I wrote that, when I wrote the melody. And the cool thing was that I ended up sticking with part of that guide track as that melody section. I actually took a section of that I really liked the way it sounded and used that as the melody in the track. And that was quite simply just the bass guitar running into this pedal here, which is the GLabs Spectral Reverb. And actually this pedal gets a lot of use on this track. It's a shimmer reverb, so if you don't know what a shimmer reverb is, it creates this really ambient pitch shifted reverb that swells in under the notes you play. And of course on the melody it was very subtle, it was barely even on, it was quite a subtle effect on that. But for the synth pad sound that you hear as well at the start, this created the bulk of that sound. In fact, it's this with the Line 6 M5 delay pedal running into it. But again, the delay is so subtle, it's really this you're hearing, it's really just a shimmer reverb. So it is still a bass guitar, and actually for both of those tracks it was Squier Pt4 Jazz Bass that was used on that. Because it is roundwounds, it had that bright attack and a lot of the detail that you'd want on a melody. There's also a track in there that's just the bass through this, again, very subtle like it is on the melody, and that's running into a delay plugin. It's a stereo delay, and that's why you hear it moving across between the speakers in stereo. So that's all the clean layers in the song. So next up would be the high gain sounds. The first high gain sound you hear is these really explosive sounding chords. I decided again to use the Squier Pt4 Jazz Bass, but decided to run a wet dry bass rig, or a dual mono bass rig depending on how you want to look at it. And really all this means is I used my radial splitter, which is like a switcher pedal that can split your signal but without any of the awkward ground loops or phase reversal issues that you could get if you did it any other way. And it used that and split my sound so that half of it was running into this Bad Penny Effects little box, which if you've been watching this channel you know I really enjoy this pedal, and I used the bass cut switch that I used in their demo actually to create a more overdrive type sound. And that was running into the Behringer BDI preamp, and that was a little bit driven itself actually, and that was running on one side. At the same time I was also recording my bass running into this, which is the GojiraFx Octave Up. So that's a really glitchy, barky sounding octave up effect if you play chords through it. And I was running that again into the GLabs Shimmer Reverb, which is a real recurring theme here. This pedal gets used a lot in this track. So this was actually running after the octave up. And the combination of the two tracks gave me all the distortion that I would want on one side, but then that barky drive from this on the other side. So that's what you're hearing for those big chords in the song. But for the distorted melodies that come in over that section, it's a similar rig again, but it's only one side of it, so it's not going to be getting split. And all I'm running is the GojiraFx Mr. Sparkle drive, which is kind of a tube screamer 808 style drive. This one has a bass mod that gives you more low end, but I actually had that turned off for this. And this was running into the octave up, and then, shock surprise, into that again. So that was giving you the sounds for all of the melodies. On the left side you've got the melody that you hear at the start of the track, played a little bit differently, but that's running with that sound out of one side, and then the same sound is used on the other side, but it's actually playing more of a bagpipe style drone note. And when they're combined, it's giving it more of a Celtic vibe, which initially wasn't even something I considered, but once it started coming together, it just seemed like the right fit for the track. And last but not least, we have the fretless bass, which is what I used for the bass line in the track. Now, I know this maybe sounds a bit counterintuitive for an all bass recording, but this is probably the simplest track on the song. And the reason for that is I wanted it to add a lot of weight. In fact, you'll have heard on the intro for the last section on the high gain sounds that there's actually a fuzz bass track in there. And that's what this was meant to be initially, but I just found it wasn't adding as much weight as a clean bass would. So I decided to keep the fretless totally clean. There's no effects pedals on this whatsoever, other than running through the Eden WTDI preamp. So really the bass line for this is just playing root notes, playing the root notes to the chords and occasionally sliding an octave up. And really those slides are just there to give it a bit more of an atmospheric feel, add to the melody and the feel of it a little bit, and just change things up a bit. You don't want it to be the same thing repeatedly through it. And of course, I did play a little bit more intricate with the fills during the heavy section. And the funny thing actually was that when I recorded the heavy section, as you'll hear in the intro to this section on the guide track, the initial version of the fretless bass line for the heavy section was actually much more complicated than it ended up being. I was playing more of a galloping feel, that kind of, and it sounded good, but it just still felt too cluttered. I still kept all the fill ideas that I came up with during that section, because they all still fit really well. It just needed that much simpler feel to the rest of the bass line. So even that ended up getting stripped way back. But of course, there's just something about the fretless bass, it gives so much character that I really felt that had to be in this song. And actually I'm regretting not using this a lot more recently. I've forgot how much I love playing fretless bass, so that'll be definitely making more appearances in the next few videos. So really that's all there is to talk about with this track. There was also a day spent mixing and mastering the track. Quite a lot of panning going on, trying to get things to only come out of one side and other things out the other side, to try and get the details to shine through and get the depth that I felt the track needed. Because I'd spent a lot of time getting the sounds right going into the recording, as opposed to working with plugins afterwards, it felt like a lot of the detail was already there. It just needed to be balanced so that everything had its own space. But really, that's something that I'm still learning a lot about. I'm by no means an accomplished mixing and mastering engineer. That's something I'm still definitely learning. But it's been really fun doing some of that on my own tracks again, try to get comfortable with it and try to learn the process. That in itself has been a really fun challenge on this track. As well as, of course, trying to create all these sounds that aren't bass guitar sounds from a bass guitar or from multiple bass guitars. So definitely going to be working on more stuff like this moving forward. I've really enjoyed it. And as I said, this is only part of the final product. Martin's going to be doing a lot more work once he gets all these tracks, so I definitely suggest if you're interested in seeing where the rest of this project goes, please go over to Martin's channel and check that out. I'll put a link in the description so you can see all his projects and just go and see all the crazy stuff he's doing over there, because there's a lot of really cool stuff. So without further ado, I think it's time I let you hear the finished track along with the video. Thanks again to Martin, he's given me permission to put the final version of my track and the video at the end of this video, so really appreciate that. But until next time, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please hit like and subscribe down below, clicking the bell icon so you can be notified of more content when it comes out. And let me know in the comments what you thought of the track, and if you've got any questions about the pedals used, because I really enjoyed working on this and I'd love to hear what you all think about it. But until then, thanks again for watching and keep working on those bass faces.